for people, not just young people, but also senior citizens and people of all ages. And the Thread Trail is a part of that as well, to try and provide additional recreational and parks activities that appeal to a broader cross section. So it's a complex answer to your question, but we know that's an issue and we're definitely working on it. It's just one of those things. The city has to chip away at it. There's not just a magic bullet we can go out there and say we can retract this, and all of a sudden the young people have plenty of stuff to do. But we are working on that. We're looking at putting in a skateboard park right downtown, because on the south side of downtown, perhaps because we have a lot of skateboarders out there. Well, that may not appeal to your children. That may not, but that there are children that appeals to, and so. As we chip away at this problem, we're making some progress, and this investment is going to give us additional resources that we can do even more. So, let's go back to Ms. Carolyn.
Mayor Thornton, one of the things that I've been concerned about, I haven't seen any advertisements about the jobs or training for the jobs, and like with Kia and I'm trying to think of the other company, a couple of companies that have started up here, they have had training so that they would have a workforce ready to go into these different jobs. And I know Marriott, I saw online where they had training where you could start training for customer service. But if the people don't know anything about it, then they can't be prepared for the jobs that are coming here. And is there any assurance that so many of the jobs are going to be offered to the people in LaGrange?
Well, there's no assurance of that, because there's no mechanism for requiring that. There's no mechanism to require a private company can go and hire whoever they want to, right? I mean, they just put a job out there and they interview. But we are very aggressively trying to make sure that local residents do know about those jobs. What will happen is, and this already happens through the Department of Labor, they put out notices and postings. The Chamber of Commerce does. The city will, when these large employers come around, the city will push that out on Facebook and other ways through the newspapers. One of the problems in 21st century America is that people get their news from so many different sources. It's hard to get a message out there. Not everybody reads the newspaper. Not everybody is on the city's Facebook page. Not everybody gets the Chamber of Commerce's emails. So it's just harder and harder to get that word out. And we know that's an issue. And we're trying to figure out how to cross-pollinate all of these various news sources to make sure that the word does get out when there is hiring. Right now, Advix is hiring, which is a brake pad manufacturer out in the industrial park. The only way I knew that was I saw a posting on Facebook that someone had shared about, because Advix is hiring. They didn't contact the mayor and say, "Hey, mayor, you need to let folks know." They may not have contacted the newspapers. They put it on a Facebook post. So it's just hard to get that out there. But what I would encourage everybody to do, I mentioned in response to Pamela's question, I mentioned what the Chamber was doing with Avalanche Consulting. There's a website called troopworks.net. Troopworks.net. And the Chamber of Commerce is actively soliciting input about what are the ways to get the word out, what is the right channel, what is the right training, etc. They need feedback from employers and employees to know what the best practices are. And so I would encourage all of you to go to that website, troopworks.net, and take their little survey and share comment, because I think that's a great comment you make, Carolyn, about the need to make sure that we're getting the word out to the right people. Otherwise, we're recruiting all these jobs. We want that to benefit local residents. We can't require that, but we can at least make sure the local residents know about it. So, yes, sir.
My name is Rick Edmondson. I'm head coach of the West Georgia Eagles semi-pro football. We've been in LaGrange for 3 years now, and I recruit young players that either went to college and came back, and former gang members. Mm-hmm. One of the biggest issues when I sit down with these young men, they feel a disconnect from the community. To the point that where when things come in LaGrange, they feel like it's not for them. So they fill in their activities, and eventually they end up being police officers. And a lot of times their first interaction with the police officer is a negative. It goes from negative to positive instead of positive to negative. And when they want them to be a part of an investigation or something like that, they have a stigmatism that they're not, for them. So my question is the process to where when someone wants to bring something in, if someone in the community, they don't have a voice in the community, someone needs to do some kind of background or do some kind of have a voice for everybody in the community.
I appreciate what you're doing with the work that you're doing with the young men in particular, and it's an issue. The issue is that so many young men feel disconnected. They feel disconnected from their family. They feel disconnected from their church. They feel disconnected from their school, their friends, etc. And the gangs sometimes offer that connection, offer that relationship, because we all as human beings want to be in relationship. We all want to have friends. We all want to have, colleagues that we can hang out with and experience life with. And so it's an important issue for us to think about how can we, either through the school system, through the churches, through the community organizations, reach these kids at a younger and younger age and make them feel very much a part of the community. I go to lots of schools. I go to lots of youth programs, and there clearly is a time in the life of a lot of young people, particularly young men, when they seem to be losing that connection. Because when I go to Whitesville Road Elementary, when I go to Hollis Hand, when I go to Ethel Kite, when I'm with the 3rd and 4th and 5th graders, they're obedient to the teachers, and they're good with their friends, and they're great with me, and so forth. And then by the time I get to the high schools and talk to them, then sometimes there's some in the audience you can tell you're at the risk of losing. I mean, it's somewhere along that line. So what I always do is I always try to remind all the kids about the importance of staying in school, staying out of crime, etc. The standard stuff that we all do. But it really is not powerful when it's coming from me, the mayor, a lawyer, a 43-year-old white man talking to, particularly in the case of African-American young men. It's just not powerful coming from me. I can say it all day long, and I do, and I'm not going to stop. But it's so much more powerful when it comes from the community, when it comes from the family members, the church leaders, when it comes from the neighbors in the community. And so it's a huge issue. It's an issue it's not unique to LaGrange. Everybody has it across the country, but it really requires people like yourself, which you've done, others stepping up and volunteering and creating programs. There are so many great programs out there to work with youth in our community. I mean, I can just go. I could sit here and go down a list of 10 off the top of my head. Right now, great programs. And if you talk to their leaders, they'll tell you their problem is they need volunteers. They need resources. They need help. And so every chance I get, that's what I encourage. I say, look, the police are not going to be able to solve these issues. They're there to protect us when something bad happens. But we got to get to our young people a lot earlier, and we got to connect them. And we're here I don't know where Pastor Jackson is. We're here in the church, but we got to get them in church. We got to get them in youth groups. We've got to get them connected, because what you're talking about is the failure of those relationships, which is resulting in gravitation towards a different type of relationship. And so I'm 100% with you. I know Chief Dekmar is. I mean, I know that Alton West, who works in a lot of these issues all the time, is very plugged in. So anything we can do to support you, let me know. Anything that, but I would encourage everybody else to think about volunteering. It may not be, in the sports arena. It might be in mentoring or after school program. It might. There's groups that do homework counseling at the rec centers on a weekly basis. I've visited with those. They do fabulous work. They need volunteers. They got plenty of kids. They need more adults. And so any opportunity like that, I think, would be welcome. So thank you for raising the issue. Do we have anything on Facebook? Let me take a Facebook question, then I'll come over to you, okay?
Chris Levinston says that he respects our law enforcement officers in our town, and he supports them, but he has concerns around the amount of time they spend dealing with traffic on our main road and not policing and dealing with the neighborhoods. It's a really long question, so I'm trying to cut it down a little bit. And he's concerned about if there's a quota for traffic, and what time you better spend dealing with drug gangs, homes being broken into, and so on.
Okay, and yeah, I appreciate the question from Facebook. There is no quota system. The police department responds to needs as they arise, and when we have traffic areas where we have lots of accidents, where we have lots of traffic violations, etc., they will deploy additional resources there. Otherwise, they're just doing general patrol. But a general patrol officer sitting on a street is available in the event there is a crime that's committed. They're not going to. We don't have a single police officer who's going to sit on Lafayette Parkway running radar and not respond to a bank robbery in progress or something. I mean, they'll divert off that. But it's a mixture, and I'm going to let the chief respond. But it's a mixture of, we have to be responsive to all the various needs in the community. And at one point in time, Chief Dekmar may have the statistic. At one point in time, we had a much higher rate of motor vehicle accidents per capita than other communities our size. And so we have done some aggressive traffic enforcement. That was several years ago. But it's constantly a balancing of how do we best deploy our resources to respond to all the needs that are in the community. Chief Dekmar, would you like to respond?
Thank you. The single most frequent complaint I get is on traffic. We average about 2,000 accidents a year. Of those, between 400 and 500 are injury. We have probably 3 times as many people injured in traffic accidents than in violent crime. And as a result, most of the time when you see folks that are officers that are enforcing traffic law, it's one of the 3 officers that's assigned to the traffic unit, whose job it is to look at those 10 hot spots a month where we have the most frequent complaints and the most frequent accidents. So it's not an either or. We have city ordinances we have to enforce. We have liquor violations we have to initiate investigations on. We have drug investigations. We also have traditional crime. So we spread our resources out to ensure that no one crime is ignored or one violation is ignored to the detriment of the public safety of the community. And traffic is a significant public safety issue.
Thank you, Chief. Yeah, as he said, it's not either or, it's both and. I mean, we have to continue to do the deployment of our resources to address all the various needs in the community. Yes, ma'am. He'll bring the microphone around.
Mr. Mayor, my name is Deborah Estes. I have concern about the roundabout on Broad Street. That's going to improve the traffic. But what about a roundabout on Hammond Road and Davis Road, where the traffic is backed up every morning, backed up every evening?
I'm familiar with that intersection, and I think that would certainly be something worth studying. I'm not sure that's inside the city limits, is it? I'm not. Is it? Okay. Well, we can take a look at that intersection and see. I'm familiar with that intersection right there. So we'll take a look at that and see. We'll have our traffic engineers look at it and determine if that would make sense from a traffic engineering standpoint.
Yeah, we have buses back.
This is out just past State Baptist, the big intersection right there. Yeah, we'll take a look. I'm looking back at the city manager because what we do is when someone requests a change in the traffic pattern, whether it's adding a stoplight, taking out a stoplight, adding a stop sign, doing a roundabout, anything like that, what the city does is engage their traffic engineers, because I know nothing about that. I mean, I know nothing about how to design an intersection to make it flow appropriately. So we let the engineers look at it and see what would be the solution. Does it need to be signalized? Does it need a roundabout? Does it need a different turn lane? So we'll do a comprehensive look at that intersection and see what they recommend. Thank you. Yes, sir. Let me come back in the back.
Thank you, Mayor, for coming out to the community. Thank you for the elected officials. Thank you for your staff. I have two concerns. First concern is, what would it take to rename Colquitt Street after Joan Devnam and Mr. Hawkins? Both of them were pioneer educators in this community, and my life was impacted greatly by both of them, and they lived just a few houses down the street. And for me, it would be a good way to say to the boys and girls of this community, these were some great guys. You see that sign right there? They helped make me to be what I am today. So if there's anything you and the staff can say to me now or later, what is the possibility that Colquitt Street could be named Devnam and Hawkins, whatever?
Well, and I know you have a second question, but in response to that, I think that's a great suggestion. What I would need some history, would need some bio material on them, and we will consider that a formal request. The action item would require a city council vote because roads are named by city ordinance, and so it would require a city council vote. But if you can get with the city manager, Meg Kelsey, who's here, and get that information to her about the two individuals, then we will certainly get that on a city council agenda, and you'll need to come forward and make a formal request, but we'll definitely take that into consideration.
The other concern that I have, I want to thank Chief Jaguar for being here. I had concern about gangs in the community. In my immediate community, it had gotten pretty ridiculous. Kids, 12, 13, 14-year-olds, so much so, until they had blue lights pinned into their spokes, and they were riding up and down the street with the blue lights flashing. And of course, that, I think, was addressed. My concern is, for all of us who are here, I feel that there are adults in our community that are pushing these kids into illegal activities. And whatever we need to do to try to identify and help the police department, law enforcement, identify these adults who are pushing these kids into these illegal activities, it really will make a difference, because I see, and most of us see, that it's really messing up these young people's lives. Thank you.
Thank you for that, and I'm going to ask Chief Deckmar to comment as well. But I know that the police department would welcome the assistance of the community and would welcome some help because you're absolutely right. I mean, there are no 12-year-old or 14-year-old kid just decides one day to become a gang member and gets initiated. I mean, there are adults, there are older kids that are recruiting and bringing them in, and we need to get to those individuals. The police department's done a great job with the district attorney's office over the last couple of years of tackling this issue. They've made a lot of great progress, but I know they would welcome the support of the community in any way they can get it. Let me see if Chief Deckmar can add a comment.
Yes, and you absolutely hit the nail on the head. One of the challenges that we have is frequently individuals that are 17 years or older, when they can be charged as adults, they get and recruit the younger children to do things so that because they're juveniles, they're handled differently. And so our challenge is to identify those individuals that are doing that. And to the mayor's point, we've been very successful probably about the last 3 years. We've had, in addition to resources from the city council and the mayor to increase the number of folks that deal with gangs, we've also been able to fund a prosecutor at the DA's office. And as a result, the DA's office is committed to prosecuting. I think we are at 200, in the last 3 years, we've made 200 gang cases. And so our preference is that we do some sort of intervention where we don't have to make those cases. But if we don't, and we don't get the kind of support that you're calling for in the community, then we're left with nothing else but the law to address those. So programs such as what you're involved in, those programs that the church is also involved in, are the real key to seeing a long-term diminishing of the gangs. So I appreciate your interest and appreciate your willingness to step up and identify what is a frustration for us.
Thank you, Chief. I think I had a question over here.
Yes, my name is Beverly Clark. I'm one of the secretaries here at Confidence, and I also help with the West Georgia Eagles. I do all the paperwork and help with the guys. One thing I want to ask is, we were talking about the young black children, and they have problems finding stuff to do, as you've heard. Okay, every weekend, and can be something during the week, every time I go to Walmart, there's a whole crew of white kids out there. I took video one night, sat there, loud, playing loud music, being rowdy, riding through the parking lot, spinning at Walmart. And nothing is done about it. And I know the police are there. I have actually seen police come through there, and they'd be there in a crowd. But when they used to hang out across from LaGrange High, as long as it was the white kids, nothing was said. But I actually sat there and watched one day. When some black kids got together, trying to, stay out of trouble, first thing happened, they had to disperse. They couldn't stay there. And so that's what we're having a problem with black kids and the white kids is they're being singled out and told they can't do something, and then they're sitting there looking at all the white kids do it. Amen. And they're not getting nothing done to them. And see, it's going to have to be equal for everybody, not just one color. Because not even and I might be wrong saying, the Mexican people don't get treated like black kids do. Because I've seen them crowd up, get drunk, act crazy, nothing gets said. And most of them we do know is not legal in the United States. But they don't get the treatment that the other kids do. And something has to be done about it.
Well, and I'm going to let Chief Deckmar respond as well to that, but certainly I agree with you that all the kids should be treated the same, black, white, Latino, Asian, any ethnicity should be treated the same. you certainly you've raised several issues that I'm not familiar with in terms of like Walmart and some of that. I've never heard about that, but I think Chief Detmar can respond to it. So I mean, I think that the police have to and do treat everything equally. The issue is sometimes the calls aren't equal. So I mean, if no one calls and complains about something, they're not going to respond to it necessarily. But if someone calls and complains about it, then they'll respond. And so that's part of the issue. If you see misbehavior, if you see whether it's whoever it is, whatever race or ethnicity, if you see behavior that is bad and destructive and threatening and so forth, then 911 is the appropriate response to report that, and the police will definitely respond and attend to it. I know they will. So, but Chief, I'll let you, yeah.
Yeah, our policy in terms of addressing crime is based on behavior, not on race. And if you have a particular instance, then that would be very helpful because Walmart has video. Also, all of our officers are required to video every encounter. And if there's any complaint, we can immediately review the video to ensure that the nature of the interaction between the officer and the citizen, regardless of race, is appropriate. So if I'll be happy to get with you afterwards, and if you've got a date and time, I'll be happy to work with Walmart to pull the video, also pull the video of any interaction that you've seen where folks were treated differently, because that's something that we do not tolerate.
Yeah. Any type of disparate treatment would violate the city policy, and like Chief says, if there's an officer involved, it's on video. That's the one thing that LaGrange has been a pioneer of. I mean, we've been doing this, 10 years? Or
Closer to 15
years. So if an officer's involved in an encounter, it's going to be on video. And so if there was a misbehavior or anything like that, Chief Detmar responds to that immediately, and the culture of the LaGrange Police Department is such that just doesn't happen. I mean, but that doesn't necessarily mean everything is going to get reported. That doesn't mean a call is going to be made to 911 when something is going on. So,
and as it goes to calls, frankly, we have a disproportionate number of calls in the black community. And when they call, they expect us to respond. And they expect that they can't check their mail at 3 in the afternoon because they're afraid of a group that's hanging out there that may or may not be gangs. We're going to have officers that interact with them. I've been police chief here for 22 years, and we've had 54 homicides, all but 6 African American. And so when an African American complains and they're concerned about their public safety, we're going to respond. But the other part of that is if we don't respond appropriately, then we need to know so we can address it. So again, I'll be happy to chat with you afterwards and give you maybe a little more facts so that help you identify that particular instance.
I need to clarify something. What I was talking about is how things happen. It wasn't a situation with a certain police officer and
okay.
It's the fact that the kids or anybody I'm quite sure people in here have seen all the kids over there in Walmart parking lot. And if I thought I had time, I would have got it off my computer and put it back on my phone and brought it so you could see it.
Well, yeah.
But what I was talking about is the fact that not when they're in the community. I'm not, the neighborhoods, they shouldn't be there. Nobody should be ganging up, being nothing in the community. But I'm talking about in public places, like over at the Grange Park or in LaGrange parking lot. The white kids come over there, everything's fine. But the black kids have to leave when they get together, more than 1 or 2. And that's what my point is at Walmart, it's all white kids out there, and I know for a fact, people see it, everybody's seen it. Just nobody says anything about it because I have reported stuff in the past, they're still there, they still keep coming.
Well, you've certainly raised the issue, and certainly Chief has heard this concern tonight. I mean, I have to confess that you're the first person who's ever mentioned to me about the Walmart situation. I mean, so I'm not aware of that at all, and But I mean, I think to some extent that also is private property at Walmart. So if Walmart, the police can only respond if a crime's occurred, right? And hanging out in the Walmart parking lot is only a crime to the extent that Walmart says no trespassing, we want you off, etc. Right? I mean, it is private property. So that adds a whole nother set of wrinkles to that discussion. But I think Chief Dekmar is going to work with Walmart to try and address that. And at LaGrange High School, again, I think probably what you're dealing with is complaint-based issues. The police are not just out patrolling saying, oh, well, someone's here at the high school, we're going to pull in and quiz them and see what's going on. I mean, they're responding to complaints, they're responding to issues. But I think that the chief commitment he would make, I think, would be that to make sure that those complaints that are coming in are being handled the same, regardless of who the kids are that are involved. I mean, I think that's the commitment he's made tonight. And so if you see additional examples of anything like this, let the chief know, and he can investigate and respond to it and see, is there a basis for it or not, and what's the rationale, what's going on exactly. Try to drill down into it. So I think that's the commitment that he's made tonight. Yes, I have a Facebook question.
Ms. Nikki Nix would like to know if there are any updates on the Ridley Lake development.
On the Ridley Lake development. No. The Ridley Lake development is some property that is out on Davis Road that joins a lake. It's a very nice piece of property that has always been anticipated for an office park style development, but I'm not aware of any new updates on it. Yes, ma'am. Samia. Let's go back.
Hi, my name is Amia Cotton, and with so many awesome things that's come to LaGrange and activities that's going on, as far as the marketing on getting people out, because everyone doesn't have Facebook, but just developing, I guess it's kind of a statement, just developing some type of street team that goes out in the community to get everyone involved, because a lot of people do not know what's going on here in LaGrange, and there are some good activities coming up. So how can people be more aware of what's going on just besides Facebook, or has a street team been about going to different communities to try to get people involved more in what's going on here in LaGrange?
Thank you for that comment. Thank you for everything that you do for our community, particularly for your involvement with the Young Game Changers, which is a very exciting new initiative here in our community of young people trying to address some of these various issues that we've been talking about tonight. And I'm not aware of any particular plans to do exactly what you're describing, but I think that's a great suggestion and something that we need to look into, because you're right. As I said earlier, it's just harder and harder to get the word out to people about things. You have to touch people in so many different directions, so many different media channels, and so maybe having a little bit more face-to-face contact, if you will, would be something that we should look into, and so to try and get the word out into the neighborhoods, out into the community. So I'm going to take that down as a suggestion and see what we can do with it, because I think that's a great one. I appreciate that. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Wanda.
My name is Wanda Cotton, and it's not so much, it's not so much of a question, but I just want to speak from a parent perspective, and that we as parents have to be involved. We have to take our role back and be parents. As my daughter always tells me, Mama, you're old school. Old school worked. And it worked in raising you. So there wasn't a time where I didn't know where my children, as long as they were in my house. So for me to hear that 12 and 13-year-olds out 11, 12 o'clock at night, that is unheard of. Go to PTO meetings. Get involved in the school system. When Chief Dekmar came here, I didn't wait on him. I went to him. I said, there are things going on in this community, and I want to know what your plans are. What are you going to do about it? And he will tell, I stayed in his face. But this is what we do. Take your neighborhood back. Get your children back. And as long as they are in your household, there is no question about what they're doing. You set the tone. You set the rules. I knew on Sunday mornings I had to get up and go to church. I knew my mother set a level, lost my father at 15. That did not stop my mom. She was both mother and father. And again, the police can only do so much. But we as parents, take back your role. And let's be parents. And not our children tell us what to do. We tell them.
Let's give that a round of applause. Amen. Amen, Miss Wanda. Thank you. And it obviously worked well with Amia. You should be proud. So yeah. All right. Anything else? Anybody? Chris? Yeah. Let's.
Yes, sir. I just wanted to know if there's been any thought with all the employment, all the great things coming, and the employers are on the outskirts of the city and outskirts of LaGrange. If there's been any kind of thought of any kind of transportation system coming. I know the infrastructure is not in place at this point, but with the growth that's coming, especially for the population that I serve, transportation is a huge issue. And I didn't know if any thought had been given to something like that.
A lot of thought has been given to it, and I appreciate the question. The question on public transportation, and we know it's an issue. It really bubbles up in two particular ways. One, it bubbles up in exactly what you're describing about getting to work. The other way it bubbles up is in getting to medical care. We have a lot of residents who will have a crisis, diabetic crisis, heart attack, whatever, and end up using an ambulance transportation, but then they can't get to the doctor on a regular basis for follow-up treatment and care. So there's that issue. But then it really comes up also on the job side, and so we've talked a lot about that. The issue is most people have some form of transportation accessible to them, but it's not reliable transportation. And so if you get one of these jobs, existing job at Kia, Interface, Milliken, or you get one of these new jobs at Great Wolf, Century Tire, Duracell, one of these new jobs, if an employer's expecting you there 5 days a week, if you can only get there 3 days and not the other 2, then you're probably not going to be able to keep the job long term. And so that reliability is what I hear as the real crux of the issue. You point out exactly the problem, though, which is that we're a little too small. And the federal government has a transportation funding formula that doesn't start until you have a population of 50,000. LaGrange is at 31. So we got a pretty good long ways to go. So therefore, a sort of a fully developed, fully integrated transportation system is really just not affordable to our community. But what is going on is the Leadership Troop class, which is a program of the Chamber of Commerce. The Leadership Troop class, it's probably about 25 or so people. They took this on as a project this year, and they're studying it, and they're visiting places like Rome and Columbus and Gainesville and other communities to see what they've done. They're looking at, they're running the gamut of looking at designing our own form of Uber, if you will, where there's like an app that you can ride share, and they're looking at everything from buses to trolleys to Uber. They're looking at the whole gamut of options to try and see what we can do. The affordability is the big issue. Affordability is the big issue, and it's not so much buying the equipment. It's the operational cost, and that's what the federal subsidy does for other communities, larger communities that we just don't qualify for. As we continue to grow, that may change as we get more resources in. But yeah, lots of thoughts being given to it. Lots of people are working on it. It's a pretty difficult problem to solve. But I appreciate you raising it, and I appreciate because it is a very important thing, not only to the folks you work with, but just generally in our community. it's an important issue that we need to address. Yes, sir. I'll just let him have my mic up here. So
I'm going to change from some of what's been said. I have a question. Hopefully you can answer it. I'm talking about adults elders that own their own home, and we are paying school taxes, and we don't have children in school. I understand we have to pay taxes. But when you are 65 and you're still paying $900 in taxes for a year, what we can do to stop the taxes on the elders that are causing them so much? Because those that have already retired and their money's not up here and they still have to pay those high taxes, what can we do to get those taxes deleted from the elders that own a home?
Right. Well, and this issue has come up. It actually came up last week at Hollis Hand, and Chairman Patrick Cruz was there and talked about some of the exemptions that are out there for senior citizens, and there are some special exemptions that are out there. I'm going to. I really appreciate the comment, and I appreciate the question. I'm going to disagree just a little bit in the sense that I actually think that we all have to pay for public education. We all have to pay for public education. And my wife and I don't have children. We have not been blessed with children. And so I pay a lot of school tax, and will never have a child in the public school system. And I pay the school property tax. And I do that because I want the kids in the community to have the best public education system that they can possibly have. And so I want the nurses that are caring for me at the hospital to have great education. I want the police officers to be well educated. We all benefit from the public school system. So I just want to defend the public school system a little bit and say that they have to have money to operate. We all, whether our children are in the future, in the past, or never have children, we all benefit from the public school system. So I really don't like getting into this idea of, well, because my kids are grown, I shouldn't pay tax. And I know that's not where you were going, but I wanted to share that first, and then to say, I also do understand your concern about senior citizens and the tax burden. And so I think the other response to this is to try and always look for other alternatives to property tax, to try and say what other funding sources are available, which is a reason to always support the e-splost votes, the sales tax votes, because that is allowing other forms of tax to support the school system without having to be totally dependent on property tax. This may take additional reform at the state level to think about what the right funding formula is, because nobody thinks that senior citizens who've worked their whole life and are retired and on fixed income should be at risk of losing their property because they can't pay the property tax. I mean, that's a bad scenario of events. So let me back up. I don't like discrimination. Okay? I don't like discrimination of any kind. And to me, we should all pay the equal burden. So that's ultimately why I'm disagreeing with you, and is because I actually think that we all have to bear the responsibility for public education in our community. What I would like to see us do instead of changing the distribution so that some people pay more than others, etc., what I would rather see us do is get away from the property tax as the sole method of funding for the school system. That's what we've done in LaGrange, in the city. The city of LaGrange doesn't levy a property tax. We haven't levied a property tax in 19 years because we've been able to use other sources of revenue, sales tax revenue, utility revenue, etc. So we don't have to levy a property tax. You may not realize how big a benefit that is, but if you live in Troup County, you pay 30 mills of tax to the county and the school board, total 30 mills. If you live in Hogansville and West Point, they add another 9 mills on top of that, so it becomes 30 to 90. In LaGrange, it's 0. We add 0 additional tax. So what I would like to see us do as a community is try to find other methods of funding to try and see if there's ways to avoid the burden that you're talking about on property tax. I'm just not willing to support a situation where different people are paying different tax rates. That's just a bias I have. But I mean, you're probably a more popular position on that than mine. But that's just where I am. That's where I am personally. That I think we should all pay the same rate of tax for whatever services we receive. I'll let you respond to that.
Well, I'm not really saying that we don't pay any tax or someone pay more tax. Just like you talk about East Mark, the taxes come from there. But the taxes ain't going down.
Right.
They continue going up. And I'm getting old. And I'm going to have to pay those taxes. So what I'm saying, look like it ought to be something happening now that the taxes getting level there because, and I'm not saying because of my kids have graduated and out of school and all that we shouldn't pay taxes. I'm just talking about taxes in general that we are paying that haven't changed because I've been paying a long time.
I understand, yeah.
So I'm just saying there ought to be something there that with all the money that was taken in, you take your light bill, they round it up. You be late, they're going to charge you $2. You don't pay your taxes on time, they're going to charge you. And if you late just because you can't get there, they're going to charge you. And that's money. And there's another thing. It's the same doing taxes to me too. We go down there to pay your taxes. You're a week late. And you go in there to pay them, you can't pay them where you're supposed to pay them. They send you across the hall over there. You have debtors sitting there waiting to take your money there. The same money you're going to pay over there. And you got people sitting over here. That's taxpayer money we spend.
Yeah.
That ought to be taken away. That would hit these taxes that we wouldn't have to be paying.
Right. Well, and I will say, talking about resources that are coming into our community, with all this new development, with all these new projects coming online, that will generate additional tax revenue that will be available to the school system. And so as the community continues to grow, as we continue to get new projects, new developments, that's building the tax base so that the residents, as a percentage of the budget, the residents will be paying less in terms of the tax burden than some of these additional businesses and industries. So that's very exciting and encouraging. In terms of the rate itself, we always want to pay less, right? We always want to pay less. I don't. The city doesn't set that. That's set by the elected school board on the tax, and so that's really who that question needs to be addressed to, is what the appropriate rate would be for it. But let me go back on record and just saying, I mean, I think you and I are agreeing, Pastor Poole, you and I are agreeing on this. I mean, public education is one of the most important things that we can do, and we've got to support it, and we've got to find ways to fund it. We want to make sure that the funding doesn't become a burden on our residents, but we also want to make sure that there is sufficient funding there for the school system.
And
so,
see, when it comes to the school, you know, I'm the president of West Georgia Ministry Alliance. We take on the school system. We take on the HEP school. Like, take Whitesville Road Middle School. We try to supply them with stuff the first of the year to help the students in there that's unable to get. So we always trying to do something to help the school and looking out. We always ask the schools anything else we can do that y'all need during the year. But something got to be done about taxes.
Thank you. Yeah. Any other questions or comments burning on your... Yes, Reverend Dominic, yes.
We've been bombarded. The church receives calls after calls of people who cannot pay, who need help for their utilities. And to the point that it's overwhelming. I had to essentially, and my secretary called 2 places and asked them to remove the church's name off their list because it's overwhelming. We cannot help with someone with $361 utility bill, and that is constant. My question is, Is there an entity? Is there a place where these people can go beside churches? And I'm speaking for a whole lot of churches here who cannot afford to help these persons. So is there something?
And let me respond in two ways to that. One is, obviously all the churches and nonprofits, LaGrange Personal Aid, Salvation Army, there are lots of organizations out there that do help with utilities in emergencies and in times of need, and those are available resources. The city does have a roundup program where if anybody can round up their utility bill, and that creates a fund that the city council designates for assistance with actual emergency and need when someone can't pay the bill because no circumstances of their own, and so forth. So there are programs out there. There's never enough. There's never enough money to go around. There's never enough charitable support for people in times of need. The other side to that question, though, is, and something that I have been promoting for a number of years, is utilization. Because back to the non-discrimination sort of commentary earlier, everyone pays the exact same utility rate. I mean, it's like gasoline, right? Everybody pays $2.50 a gallon or whatever the price is today. Everybody pays the same utility rate per kilowatt hour. But and in LaGrange, actually, if you're a LaGrange customer, you get a bargain, because our utility rate is lower in the city than Diverse Power in the county. We're lower than Georgia Power. We're lower than West Point. We're lower than Hogansville. We're lower than Noonan. So the per kilowatt hour rate is quite low. But here's the problem. I run into lots of people who call me up who have these $400, $500 utility bills on a 1,000 square foot house, et cetera. And if the house is, if you run your thermostat too high or too low, depending on the cycle, you're just burning electricity. You're just burning it just like a gas guzzler car. And so what I would like to see, so what I think the churches could do is the churches could help us educate people on how to manage their utility consumption and do a better. Sometimes it may require thinking about insulation and other types of energy efficiencies, but a lot of times it's just true management of the thermostat. I mean, my wife will not let me turn the thermostat above 66 in the winter, so I'm sitting in there in a sweater in my house, and in the summer she won't let me turn it below 78. So you don't want to come over to my house. You might not see me with a top on, right? And so. The thing is, I mean, but because of that, my 2,500 square foot house may be $300 a month utility bill, and someone else's 1,000 square foot house might be $500 a month. So it is an education thing. So to the extent that you, like the church, can help us promote that, the city staff will eagerly come out and meet with groups and talk about weatherization, talk about utilization, talk about best management practices to try to help people lower their bills. Because the last thing the city wants is for someone to not pay their utilities and to have their utilities turned off, because the city's in the business of selling, the utilities. So we want the customers to use it, but we want them to use it wisely, and we want them to be able to pay for what they actually are using. So there are programs out there, LaGrange Personal Aid, Salvation Army, Kathy. There are programs out there that do help with utilities, but also a big part of this is education, and the city staff is eager to come out and help with that.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. I have another question.
Yes, sir.
I have seen a whole lot of people who have committed crimes. They've served their times, and they've released from prison, jail, whatever, but with a record. And as such, they cannot find work. And these individuals, young, individuals walking the streets.
And I know you came in a few minutes late tonight, but we talked about this exact issue, and so but let me summarize what. Yes, it's absolutely an issue. Chris from the Department of Community Supervision is here. We've talked about that. We know it's an issue. We've been very successful at getting some local businesses to consider hiring people, notwithstanding the criminal record, if they are otherwise a good employee, like you say, have done their time, have completed their sentences, etc. And so. One thing that I think we need to continue to do is to talk about the success of that at Milliken Interface. I know Mike Patton Auto Group has been a leader in this, in trying to hire people notwithstanding the criminal conviction. And so we'll continue to work to promote that. But thank you very much for raising that concern. Let's come up here to Pamela, and I think we may be getting close to time. We'll keep going.
A couple of employers here in LaGrange, Georgia, a couple of weeks ago to check on the work opportunity credit. I found out that's a credit that the employers will give, or the government will give to them if they hire certain people, ex-con being one. My question to you, is the city educating the employers that's here about the work opportunity credit and what tax break they could possibly get for hiring certain people?
I don't know of any specific educational initiative along that line. I know we have, Alton has done a lot of work with our local employers on Opportunity Zone credit, which may be related to this program. I'm not sure, I don't know the details of that program, but we'll check into that and see, because I know that Alton West, the Community Development Department, does educate employers on tax credits that are available through the Opportunity Zone initiative, and that's been put out through the Chamber of Commerce and through other vehicles. But I'm not sure about the credit you're talking about, so we'll follow up with that with Alton and see if we need to do a better job of spreading the word about that, because that would incentivize employers to hire, and that's a good thing.
And the last question I have a program where I, during the summer, offer jobs to young children, 12 up to 18, 19. What is it that the city is doing to offer employment to some of the youth during the summer? Because when I grew up, I worked, starting at the age of 12, 13. What is the city doing to offer some type of employment when school is out that would alleviate some of the burdens that the parents have on high utilities, groceries, when the children are out?
Right. I'm not aware of anything that the city proper is doing along those lines. But Chief Deckmar, did you want to add something to that, or?
Yeah, we've sponsored an internship for 3 years working with New Ventures, Mike Meredith, and so he vets them, and then we have between 14 and 16 years old, and they work during the summer at the police department. So. That's been a very
It's a program where they're technically working for New Ventures, but they're deployed at the police department So there are, and I'm not aware of your program that you do in the summer, but if we can connect with that with the staff, there may be ways to promote that. As well through the police department and others.
And to the criminal record issue, Mayor. We've had individuals that got jammed up when they were younger and got involved in a variety of community activities, worked on and off with the city or the police department or the faith community over 8-10 years, and would contact the police department and ask them to support them getting a pardon. And so we've also assisted folks in getting pardons so that they no longer have to wrestle with that when trying to get a job.
Let me let Chris say, I think he has a follow-up, add to that, and then.
Yeah, there are a lot of companies in town that are willing to hire people with felony records. A lot of them will go back from the background check from 5 to 7 years from conviction date. But a lot of them are going through staffing agencies, and if they have their GED, they're eligible to get on full-time. But we've made a lot of headway in finding companies, and be it small or even to the to the real small brand that are willing to work with them. And a lot of them go through staffing agencies. We actually have some that are working out on the Great Wolf site through a staffing agency in town. So, and I work with the probation and parole department, which is now Department of Community Supervision. But we are finding people a job. They may be underemployed, but we're building those work ethics and those. So I'll be happy to be a resource for anybody who's looking for somebody that has that need.
Great, thank you. Well, thank you all. Yeah, let's give Chris a hand for as well. Thank you all for coming out tonight. I'm gonna let Pastor Jackson come up and close us. But I'm grateful. I'm grateful for taking your time, coming out, asking good questions, making great suggestions, and the town hall's not the only time to do this. The city council, and the schedule's in the handout. The city council meets the second and fourth Tuesday of every month. We have public meetings at 5:30 at city council chambers. You're all welcome to attend. At the end of every city council meeting, I always do the same thing. I look out in the audience and I say, is there anybody else in council chambers who has anything that needs to come before the city council tonight? And usually Miss Carolyn will raise her hand and have something for me. But I mean, we welcome your input. We welcome your suggestions. Do you have something to add? Okay, Carolyn, I'm gonna have to allow Miss Carolyn the final, and then I'll come back to Pastor Jackson.
I just stood up to thank you, Mayor, and Chief Dagmar for listening to the community when we asked to have that road reopened over there, and working around and trying to make sure that we were taken care of, and the senior citizens not having to go through the changes and have accidents that they had. I appreciate that, and I'm sure all of the other community members that I have talked to, they are appreciative of what you've done so far as making sure that we did not have to go through those streets that did not have light.
Yeah.
So, and also, the only other problem now is the Greenville Street Bridge, so.
We're working. The Greenville Street Bridge is going to be a long-term issue. That the bridge is not safe, and the DOT is going to replace it, but it's going to, when you build a bridge over a railroad, you don't talk about bureaucracy. When you're trying to get the DOT to build a bridge over a railroad, I mean, it's going to take a while to get that done, but we're working on it because we know it's a big inconvenience to a lot of people. So, thank you. Pastor Jackson, can I ask you to close us?
Yes, yes. Let's give our mayor a hand. Awesome job. He has brought us some great information here tonight. I certainly thank you all for coming out tonight and just sharing every concern to our citizens.
I'm sorry, I want to make a quick announcement. Great Achievement Youth Empowerment Academy, we're offering free SAT, ACT tutoring at LaGrange College with a partnership we have with them on working with our high school students to get scholarships coming in so they can go to a higher education. We're doing it every Saturday morning from 8:30 to 1. So if you know any high school students, we'll request them to be on grade level and commit to the Saturdays, so we can get scholarships in. So if you know anyone, let them know. They're more than welcome to come.
Wonderful. All right. Okay, therefore, I want to thank our mayor, our council. I see Mark Mitchell back there. I saw Dr. Edmondson in the back. Thank you all for everything that you all do. I have to give hats off. Meg, you have stepped up. You've done a wonderful job. That's our city manager. If you all don't know, let's just give her a hand. Awesome job. Thank you all for just being here. Y'all have heard the announcements. I have to echo what they said. We have a lot of things that's going on in the community with the police academy, with Great Achievement with Ms. Pam Williams in the summer. She does an awesome job with the youth. Brother Ricky and several entities are doing great things. And while they're doing it, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. Let's just join in with them to make it greater and that we can help, and let's support it. And so the chief is always open. We're part of his team, myself and Reverend Booker with McCoy, and the mayor's office is always open. Go up, do like Mr. Mead, ask questions if you don't understand. I promise you they will take time out to sit down and talk with you, that you can get understanding. And all things that we do, get understanding.
Yeah.
Let us stand. I thank everybody tonight. Thank you, everybody. Let us pray. Gracious and eternal Father, we thank you again for tonight. We thank you for all the information that has been shared. We thank you for our mayor, our council, and we thank you for our city officials that have come out tonight. We ask that you cover our police officers and their entire staff, God. We ask that you just be with them, God, and even in the midst of adversity, go down to West Point and just touch the families, God. We ask that you just continue to watch over our city of LaGrange, and we thank you for every idea. We thank you for every person that shared tonight, God. We just praise you for it, and we continue to give you glory in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.